And here we are. Today being a Monday, we usually have a family check as one of our segments right here on Good Morning Kenya. Today is no different. And on Family Check, we'll try to just get to speak about different matters that concern our families. And today we are speaking about one topic that may be a bit controversial, but it is happening. So yes, we will have the conversation. It is hidden families and relationships. That is what we will be looking at, just trying to get where does all this stem from, and when it happens, why do we need to have families or children who are hidden? Why not just bring them all to the light? And joining us for this conversation is one Jen Ain Kimari. She is a life coach, psychologist, and mental health expert. And I will be doing this alongside my colleague, Mike Migwe. Welcome to the program, Jane.
Thank you.
How are you doing this morning?
I am well, despite the rains and the traffic.
I can imagine the traffic situation on the roads.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Yes.
But you're here.
Yes, I'm here, and I'm happy to be here to dive into this.
These are conversations we cannot run away from, actually, because they're happening left, right, and center. You see, sometimes when a man is out of the picture now, then all of a sudden, during or after, before or after, people come out and say, you know, he was my husband, we were in a relationship, we have kids. I think the first thing that you wonder, why keep it a secret? Why keep it a secret?
Well, before we get into that, I think it's important that we mention that this conversation is not about condemnation, but it's about understanding.
Yes. Yeah.
And creating a space where men will feel that there's a safe space where they can share, where they can be, you know, they can talk about their struggles, and where we can find a solution.
Yeah.
Now, you've asked why that happens sometimes, and despite what most people would presume, because, you know, we have stereotypes, and the obvious one is that these men did not have a moral compass. But then there's so much at play, other than just the moral dynamics. There's the psychological, there's the cultural, and then there's the relational dynamics at play. And when I say that, we can first look at the psychological, for example, because I'm a psychologist, so let's start there. And you'll find that, and I'm sure you will confirm or deny as a man, that as you grow up, you're brought up in a way that you're taught how to be a provider, to be a protector, but then when it comes to emotional expression, that part is left out. Nobody teaches you how to deal with being vulnerable and how to meet your personal needs and even speak up for yourself. So we have a culture where men are taught about emotional regression. So we hide, we suppress our emotions. And now when it comes to you're an adult, you're dealing with all these societal pressures, you're working, you have all these expectations, and then maybe you feel like your personal needs are not being met. Instead of bringing it up and sharing, you find a better way to go about it. You think it's better to go look for someone else who can meet whatever is not being met in the structured monogamous marriage, because men are not taught to express themselves. So you can find that sometimes that is the cause. It's not that because a man just, you know, wanted to run wild. Sometimes it's an issue of they're not able to express their needs, and when they find somewhere they feel safe, they tend to stick there. And then also, once that happens, and for example, there's a child in the picture, they don't know now how to bring that up, because one, there'll be a lot of harsh judgment from the society. Most men don't want to seem like they're in a failing marriage. They don't want to seem like they are not meeting the societal ideal of a family man. And they also don't want to have to go through separation. So it kind of seems easier to keep things a secret than to bring them out. So that could be one. Another thing, you find that even the culture, especially the African setup, we have been brought up to think that it's okay when a man has multiple families. But then the conflict comes in because we're also Christians, most of us, and the Christian narrative says it should be monogamous. But then our culture says it's okay to be polygamous. And you find a man might be lost somewhere in that. And they're not able to, if they're polygamous, they're not able to bring it out in the open and share why this is happening, because we've also seen families where a man has maybe 2-3 wives and they're all living together, and it's, you know, there's no tension and all that. So you find that there's so much that forces a man to bring about the secrecy.
What about the aspect of living a double life? Because there are men who just want to have their cake and eat it.
So it could be different reasons. I've seen that men tend to compartmentalize when they're dealing with this. Like you see how you can have a folder and there's a cardboard for this, another one for that. So men tend to do that. Instead of dealing with a certain issue, you put that in a box and put that away. So you can find a man is now living the double life that you're talking about. There's the wife department that he has that sorted. There's the girlfriend. There's, you know, all that. But now the disadvantage with that is that you find that it will have an emotional toll on the man. Because one, there'll be an aspect of paranoia. You don't know when is your last day eating this cake and having it. Also, you'll have emotional exhaustion, because I would imagine having to put up a certain look for your wife, for your girlfriend, for your, you know, it will spread you thin. So there'll be emotional exhaustion, and there'll also be anxiety. Like if you're with the wife and a random number calls, I would imagine they'll be like that. Because you don't know if today is the day.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, and all that can even lead to now having emotional issues, like maybe stress that goes unchecked, and it could even turn into depression.
I hear you on that. And you know, there's actually a term, we were talking with Mike off camera, of the term that they use to describe the other children, you know, even the word the other children is already demeaning, you know. So they say illegitimate, you know, illegitimate child and whatnot. First of all, who came up with those words? Because, you know, it's not this child's fault that they were born out of wedlock, that they were born, you know, out of, you know, in that situation, it's a situationship where the man has a wife, yes, but then they have this other woman outside their marriage. So I just want to try and understand, you know, being that you're a psychologist, just what psychological effect does that have on this child, you know, and even on the other family, on this family that is now the legitimate one, let me use that term, after they get to find out there was another family outside that we absolutely didn't know nothing about.
So when he started, he mentioned when this comes up mostly after the man has left the scene. So we can start from there. So for the family that is legitimate, there's a lot that goes through, because one, you are trying to mourn the loss, but then when the news comes up, there's a betrayal that is felt. So there will be a conflict of emotions. You're trying to mourn this person because you knew them a certain way, but then the new version that has been brought to light, it brings about a cognitive dissonance where you're not able to now merge the two versions. And also the other things that come up, you might find that now there's financial struggles in between this family and the other family. There could be legal battles. There's a lot that happens, and you find it makes it really hard for the families, both sides. One, to go through loss and grief and come out of the other side healed with acceptance. And also, for now, the people who are involved, they go through a sort of trauma that affects even how they view the world. If before there were people who are very optimistic, you might find they now become cynical. They don't trust easily. They treat everyone as a suspect. And now for this other side of the family, especially if they did not know that there was a family one and there were family two, one, especially for the children, because there's going to be a way that you'll feel you are hidden, and nobody wants to feel like you are hidden.
Yeah, you feel like a mistake.
Yeah. And now you find that the child might struggle even with their own identity because they don't know how to view themselves. They don't know, like, why weren't they good enough, like the other family, for the dad to, like, stand up for them and share, like, these are also my children.
The question of, isn't he proud of us?
Exactly.
Why are we being... There's a lot of questions that come up. And one of them, you know, let's say the man has exited the scene. You know, the other family now comes up. You know, the quote-unquote first family.
That's stuff.
Yes, the first family. Doesn't that now put questions into how they knew the man or the father or the husband?
Well, yes, that's what I'm saying. It will bring about an issue of distrust, because now, if assuming I was in the first family and I thought of this man a certain way, and now this comes up, and now you start to question everything. You start to wonder, like, all those happy moments that we had, were they real?
Yeah.
Was it
all a lie?
Exactly. No, you feel like your happy life that you had with this person was just a lie.
Yeah.
And that can just make you spiral out, because now you don't know, like, what was real, what was not.
Yeah.
And it can disorient you as a person, whether it's the grown-up or the children.
Yeah. And as you mentioned with the children who are now, you know, from the other family, it clearly messes with them. And this is where some of these traumas stem from. You know, you find an individual who's now all grown up, but they really don't have an identity. And it's simply stemmed from that point. So I feel like, you know, maybe you can add your views on this. But for the men who happen to have this family, and then, you know, they have another family outside and they don't bring them to light. I mean, makosa ikishafanyika imefanyika. They say makosa imefanyika, makosa ni yangu. I mean, just bring your house to order. Just let your wife know. Don't you think that would be the best way to go about it? Because if I was asked, I'd say, well, imefanyika, so just let your wife know there's this, let your other children know, you have siblings, you know. I mean,
yes, in an ideal world, yes, that would be like the easiest go-to solution. But you see, like I mentioned, there's so many things at play. For example, let's say a man gets another family and it was not even intentional, because sometimes things happen. Like you might be going through, I'm not even trying to be an accident. No, I'm not saying it's an accident. I'm not even trying to excuse men. Do not be happy. I'm not excusing your gender. But I'm just saying, you might find a man is going through so much, and in that moment of being vulnerable, someone comes into the picture and they fit something they're looking for, and it gets out of hand. If, for example, that happened, or whether it was intentional or not, coming clean is not as easy as you would think, because one, society is going to rain hard on you.
Judgment. One,
if let's say you are in a position of power, all of a sudden you're no longer good enough because you're this man who has multiple families. If you are actively in church, you'll be judged like you have to now step back because you're this massive sinner. You know, like even in the family, people will start just judging you and thinking so much. So sometimes you find when men weigh, like, do I go ahead and share or do I not? Especially because of the society and what we have been made to think of men who, you know, it's like the bravest men are the ones who say, but those are the ones we crucify the most. And because of that crucifixion, the person who wants to share will probably not.
What about the aspect of where a man does not want to lose both families, so he risks keeping it a secret, just so he does not lose the first family, quote unquote, and the second family, quote unquote? Is that a case scenario?
Yes, but like you said, men might want to have their cake and eat it. Ideally, if you respect both women in this scenario, you should just come clean to them. Even if you won't announce to the society, at least come clean to those who are directly involved and see how you can move forward. Because it's disrespectful to be with someone and you're continually lying to them. And most cases you find the first one is the one who's been lied to. The second one knows about the first one. So it's a very unfair dynamic. If you want to keep both, find a way. If you're able to convince both to be your wives, find a way to have that conversation with both and see if you can, you know, maintain both. Because there are also men who have two wives. And they
but then again, those men who have two wives, the first wife knows
about the second wife. So maybe what's the best way, or can I use the term ethical? What's the ethical way or the ethical consideration of being able to just now bring this 1, 2, or 3 families? Because there are those who have 2, 3, not just, you know, one other. You know, what's the ethical way of just considering this and bringing things to order, instead of you waiting until your last day and maybe you didn't even have a will, so now after you're dead, then there's a family that's coming forth and saying, oh, we also, you know, deserve, we need a share,
of that estate.
You know, he has these other children, 2, 3 of them. So just maybe what's the best way to go about it?
Well, I wish the pastor was here to talk about the ethical way, because that really is not my aspect. And even when I'm dealing with such a thing, ideally, first to help the man understand what he wants before now moving forward. And really, I cannot give advice, but I would say this. This is like my personal opinion and not really as a psychologist. I believe it's best for one, the man to understand why this happened, because without the self-awareness, he will not even know how to go about it. So first, for the man to understand why it happened and why he wants to maintain that status quo.
Yeah.
Second, to also have empathy in regards to those involved. Put yourself in their shoes and ask, if this was me and this was happening to me, how would I have preferred that this person went about it? And then now try and go about it in a way that, one, if neither knew, inform both, and also think about the children. In case both sides have children, they are siblings that should know each other, because we don't want a scenario where they are grown, they meet somewhere and they think they're in love, but it's just the bond of being siblings. You know, there's just so much to think about. So even before you decide as a man the ethical way, why did this happen? What do I want? If I was the one in their shoes, how would I have preferred this to be handled? Then do what you would, you know, you'd have preferred to be done to you. Talk with them. Now also consider the children, and if necessary, have like a legal counsel on about your properties to just prevent the chaos after, and just be a decent human being. If you're able to give both families a good life, since you brought them in the first place, try and equally share the attention, the finances, the love, since it's your mess.
Do you ever really get such clients? I doubt. Who come to you, they're in a dilemma because of such a situation, you know, they don't know how to come out to the, or rarely?
Mostly you'll find someone who is married and does not want maybe them, but then they're in a dilemma on how to go about 1, 2, 3 things. And it's for us, and how, especially for my practice, I'm very person-centered. So I want you, for once, to understand yourself, and also once you know what you want to do, help empower you to make that decision. Because at the end of the day, it's not my decision. You're the one who is living that life. You're the one who's going to live that life after the decision you make. So it's for you to decide what works best.
There's something you said about men compartmentalizing.
Yes.
And now I'm intrigued a little bit. Is it possible for this man to have, he has 2 families, one is secret, one is known, but is it possible for him to love them equally?
I will not answer that, seeing that I'm not a man.
From your perspective as a psychologist.
But you know, when I mentioned compartmentalizing, it's a coping mechanism. So this is how, instead of dealing with, let's say, difficult emotions, you package them and put them away. So you see how sometimes for a woman, you can have like all these things coming at you and you're able to deal with all of them at once.
But isn't that from man running away from reality?
Yes, in a way, yes. Because you're putting this there, so there's a time you decide I'm dealing with this, you open that department, you deal with that. Everything else is put away. So if I'm with the first family, I'm not thinking about the others. And if I'm with this other, so it's like trying to separate you get?
Yes.
So you don't want to, in essence, look at the bigger picture and face the reality.
But the balancing act there has to be very delicate for him.
Yes. And that's why I said, because most are not able to balance it, and honestly, it has to be very difficult to balance. Now, the mental health issues might come in, because there is now the paranoia, the anxiety, the exhaustion of constantly maintaining that balance.
Yeah.
And I mostly think, there's my perspective, I mostly think these secret families and secret relationships for men are kept a secret for fear of judgment.
Yes.
Yeah. And also the stigma.
Yeah,
as you had mentioned, there's a lot of stigma around that, you know, just, you know, there's a way that the society tends to view you after such an occurrence. So I bet that's why some of them just decide, okay, I want to remain the respectable man that I am, you know. But also speaking about that, sometimes the in-laws tend to know about this. You know, say the mother to the husband. The mother to the husband probably already knows that, oh, okay, my son has yet another family somewhere, but they don't also get to tell. You know, so just, I mean, I feel like it's such a messed up dynamic.
But is it
sometimes
in their place?
I know you can, it's not in your place, yes, but you can speak to your son and let him be open about it. You know, maybe you're not the one to, maybe it's not your story to tell, but can't you just talk to this son of yours then and, you know, just advise them to just open up?
You know, probably before the man maybe came to one of the family members who was going through a very hard time about it, and he needed to offload and share with somebody. So if he shares, let's say, with a brother, with a mother, a sister, or whoever, the sister is there for support. And even if she were to advise him on all the right things to do, at the end of the day, it's for the man to decide. You know, like if a grown-up comes and they share about a challenge they have, even if you give them 10 very solid reasons on what they should do, if they don't want to, they won't. So the family of the man could be they don't support. They feel really bad about the first wife, you know, being lied to, but one, it's not their place. And two, they can't force their son to out himself unless he's ready to.
I feel there's a way you can just, you know, you can push the right buttons.
Honestly, when it comes to grown-ups, you cannot force someone to do something they do not want.
But then again, in all this, we're talking about hidden families, hidden relationships. Doesn't that reflect people's take on modern polygamy in modern times? Because actually that is what we were talking about last week. Doesn't that reflect or tie to that?
I feel if I say yes, that will be used as an excuse so that men can get away with, you know, having multiple wives or whatever, because, you know, in the olden days, our grandfathers did it. And I believe even when it was being done, there was, the secrecy bit was not there. If the secrecy is taken out, things would be easier. Because true. I know, like, if a man wanted to get another wife, they would consult the first wife. And to some extent, the first wife even sometimes helped choose whoever is coming. So there would be no animosity, no fighting, none of that. And it's easier for the man. So if you want to go the polygamous way, then do it right. Inform the first wife that, you know, I want to bring someone else because of 1, 2, 3, and avoid hurting so many people in the process. All
right, remember our conversation is on hidden families and relationships, or secret families and relationships, and you can get to join in the conversation. We have a calling line that is 0716 103 301. That is 0716 103 301. You can call in and give us your suggestions on this, your comments, or even if you have a question, feel free to call in, to call that line, and we will be getting to hear from you right here directly. So now, you know, this has already happened, right? So the man is no longer in the picture, he's passed on. So now there's this other family that has come, and now it's in the open that, okay, clearly, hata ukiangalia watoto wanamkaa tu, hakuna hata ya kukata. So just where to start now for reconciliation, or when you now, because there's clearly conflict now after that. So reconciliation, where to start from you know, where to start from with that?
So one, reconciliation cannot happen until all the involved parties are able to grieve, because the biggest thing here, despite this new found secret, is the loss. And no matter what the man did, this is someone they loved, this is someone who had been part of their lives for God knows how long. So the first and most important bit would be trying to help both sides of the family to deal with the loss and all the other emotions that are coming up.
Okay, we have a caller. We have Chadwick from Kisumu. Chadwick, if you can hear me, good morning, and what is your question or comment on this topic? Chadwick, good morning. Okay, amepotea.
Yeah, so as I was saying, it's first to help with the grief. Because you cannot reconcile or talk with the other side of the family when you've not even dealt with the loss that you're feeling and all the emotions that come up. Because as I mentioned, this is now has another dynamics, because there's also betrayal in it. So there's anger, there's, you know, there's so much. So once the family mentally is able to stabilize and have dealt with the grief, now you can move on to the next phase of how do we proceed. If there is issues about like finances, inheritance and all that, experts would have to be brought in.
It's legal matters.
To now guide on that. And also on the family members, ideally the grown-ups should find a way to make it work for the children involved. You know, you see how people co-parent? This is a sort of co-parenting, because now these are brothers and sisters that should get to know each other. And you two, who probably do not like each other at all, will need to find a way to make it cordial.
But then again, you see, sometimes the approach of this family that has been kept secret now comes... They may use a different approach. But we have a caller from...
Michael, cut you short. Okay,
we have a caller from Quisero. Her name is Winnie. Good morning, Winnie. What is your question or comment?
Yeah, my question is...
Yes.
Kama mtu ameolewa kindoa kihalali na amezaa na yeye mtoto mmoja, alafu tena ameenda akawachana na yule mwanamke for 10 years.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Lakini immediately amewachana na yeye, alafu ameshazaa tena na wanawake wawili. Na ndoa kama hiyo unaweza ifanya aje?
Okay.
Just to make sure that I got it right, she's saying if someone is married and you have children with that man, and then you discover that there are other women who also have children with the man, what to do with the marriage. Like I said, I'm not in the business of advising or telling people what to do, but if someone like that comes, one will discover what does she want with her life, because you know it's not about what the society expects or wants you to do. It's about what do I want for myself, because we are told like people have different what can I call them, like something you could be okay with might be something I'm not okay with. I might be someone who can understand that this happened and I'm able to forgive and move forward. Someone else might not. So it's for you to first understand, where am I? Am I able to forgive this betrayal? Am I able to move forward? Am I comfortable in this kind of now new dynamic that has come into place?
Okay, we have another caller, just Karanja from Thika. If you can hear us, good morning, Karanja, and what's your question?
Good morning, how are you?
Fine, thank you, Karanja. What's your question for the day?
Mine is not a question, it's a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
The debate is proper, timely, should be continuous.
Yes.
And I feel that when you are discussing it, look at it from the perspective of the age of the victim and the perpetrator, if that's the right words to use. Because the culture, the upbringing, and their worldview, depending on their age, is completely different.
Okay.
Oh, that's true.
For the elderly, who are acculturated by either Christian religion, they will find it a little bit more complicated. Because there is wealth to share. For the younger folks, they'll find it more exciting because it is a life they are reading and they don't hold too hard on their beliefs. So if it is a Gen Z victim, he'll be a little bit more liberal. Also, it depends on your religion. If you are Muslim, you are increasing your wealth and your family size, and you are looking into the future. If you are Christian, I think you are already messed up in your head. You have been told what not to do, and the policies are too strict. So when you are debating, I think it's better if you try to get some victims and perpetrators to come and give us what is their worldview on these issues.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right.
We definitely hear you on that, Karanja. And I mean, valid point.
He has a valid point. And there's something that he has mentioned, culture and religion. There are some cultures that allow a man to have polygamy.
Yeah.
Religions in Islam,
Yeah. I think
polygamy.
4.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's still not hidden families.
But yes,
these
those are not
families that
hidden
should
families.
be known. It's not like for Muslims they're allowed to have these secret families outside.
Yes.
No, their religion allows them to have up to 4 wives.
Yes.
So these are wives that are known.
Yes.
It's polygamy. It's known.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The aspect of culture and religion.
Yeah.
The expectations.
Even before we got there, I think it's very important we highlight the issue of transparency. Whether it's culture, whether it's religion, the main point is they're not hiding these women.
Exactly.
Because even for the wife number 2, it cannot be easy being kept a secret. Nobody wants to feel like, we only hide bad things. So if this person truly wants you to be in their lives, they should be able to share about it.
Yes.
So if a man really is in a situation where there are multiple people, transparency is the key. It's going to really deal with all the other things that could come up.
And save a lot, especially if the man exits.
Yes.
And there is a will, or whether there is a will or not, it will
and even
avoid a lot
beyond
of
the
things.
material things, even
Yes.
the emotional well-being of the children and the wives involved,
Yes.
transparency is going to make it much easier for everybody. Yeah. You have to ask something? Sorry, I cut you short.
Yeah. No, it's just that I wanted to know just something about religion and culture now how it ties down to polygamy and how to deal now with these hidden families.
I believe, especially if you've been brought up in the Christian setup, there's a lot of shame and stigma and guilt attached to it, and that is more likely to make a man keep things a secret than come out in the open. Because if you do share, all of a sudden, you're a lesser Christian.
Yeah.
If you had like positions in the church, you can no longer hold them.
Yeah.
So there's just too much stigma attached to it, especially for Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah. And why, when we talk about transparency, I mean, and why it's really, really of importance when it comes to this matter. Can you imagine, you're the man.
Yes.
She's your first. I am that hidden one somewhere. They're called Toshungwas.
Yeah.
That one who's hidden somewhere. Yes, you don't exit, right? But then your wife does not know about me. The children that you have with your wife do not know these other children. And then they get to grow up. And they meet somewhere in the university of somewhere, and then they love each other.
Yeah.
And I believe that bond would really just still bring them together because they're blood.
Yes.
But then they don't know about that. So they feel, I'm in love. So try picture that, And now it's your 2 children who have fallen in love.
Yeah.
And they've come to say, okay, Dad, by the way, I've gotten a kagal.
Yeah.
Then this
Then you
kagal
see
is
the kagal
actually...
is your
The girl that is being brought to you.
I mean, look at it that way.
I think most men do not picture the bigger picture. Like they just want to end the secrecy. Like we say, they're to defend them.
Yeah.
But if you know mind and what your decisions now could bring about in the future, tilt you in the right, just disclose what is happening.
Hold it there. A caller, we have Daniel Omanga from Kisii. Good morning, Daniel. What is your comment or question?
I want to know because there is a time.
Sorry, come again. Come on,
Thank
Daniel.
you, madam. I only wanted to know much about if somebody is married and the wife breaks long time ago, and the second wife you staying where. And for example, now it's about 20 years ago, and the woman we left, said she's intending to come back because she said all the children are intending to come back to me because we divorced, not really, but I wanted to know what can I do because I don't want the first wife. The second wife, we married, we have children, and I've paid it down.
Okay.
Did you get that?
I think he was married for 20, he was married 20 years ago, the wife left, now they want to come back, but he married after they left, he married again and they have children. Now he wants to know what is he supposed to do in this case.
That's the thing, and that's why I keep going back to self-awareness.
Yeah.
As the man in that situation, it should be you to know, like, what do I want? Because I could tell you take her back, but then that's not going to work for you. Or I tell you don't take her back, yet maybe you still love her. So it's for you to first understand, why did she go in the first place? What brought about that drift? Do I feel whatever issues were there are now resolved? Am I comfortable with dealing with whatever past she comes with into the picture? How will my second wife deal with now the first one coming back? Am I ready to have this conversation with now the second one and explain that I had a previous one, she wants to come back and I want her back? Again, how am I going to make it work? You know, if you're able to answer all those questions, you'll not need to ask anybody what to do, because the answers to those questions will help you decide.
Even the aspect of, was he present in the years that the
woman was
he
away
present
for
in
the
the
children.
children's
Exactly.
That also plays a role.
Yes, yes.
That plays a role because it speaks to how, if, for instance, hypothetically, he decides to take back their first wife, the relations between
him and the children.
Exactly.
As well. Yeah. Most of these things, generally in life, if you're in a dilemma, you should be able to ask yourself tough questions and answer them. And these questions you can only ask yourself if you're aware with where am I in life, what do I want, you know. So it's very important for self-awareness. That's why I said, even as we talk about this issue of the hidden families and everything, it's good for the man to understand, why did this mess come about in the first place? Was it because I was unable to effectively communicate my emotional needs with my first wife? And then I saw someone that I thought, you know, would help me deal with that? Was it because maybe there was a lot of pressure about bills and everything, and I just wanted an escape, and that escape became a person? Because if you're not able to deal with, let's say, conflict, to communicate your needs and all this, you'll try and escape. And in the avoidance and in the escape, sometimes now these other things come up. Yeah.
All right. We'll take your final remarks on this conversation. What's your final take on it?
I believe as a society, we need to, as much as we are not condoning the behavior, we need to have a safe space for men to just share about their struggles, share about what it is that they're dealing with. Because you'll find we have a society where the man is seen just as a provider, as a protector. We do not see like the softer version of the man. And he's even made to feel like he's not even supposed to show us that version of him. And if let's say churches, people like myself can be vocal about that, you know, we care about men's mental health, and there's someone you can talk to. And even if men themselves would be willing to just speak with each other, because sometimes you'll find these people do not have this conversation. Am I wrong? Am I lying? Right?
Men rarely talk.
Exactly.
Yes.
So like your brother, your friend could be struggling and you don't know.
Sure.
But if you have that safe space where maybe once in a while you just decide, you know what, you're going to have a no judgment conversation.
Yes.
After this, we won't even bring it up. So you don't have to worry about the next time you're making jokes, we'll be like, who used John Apitia, you know. Because also men don't want the stigma of problems being attached to their identity. If I tell you I'm struggling with my wife, I don't need you to now see me as someone who is struggling past that conversation. So it's more of just having a safe space for men as a society, and even men themselves.
Right. And that's a good way of ending this conversation. This is where we get to end it. And also just remember the impact it has. Some of the impacts that we've gotten to talk about, some of them are lifelong. So just be cautious when you are, you know, you want to get into this murky waters, you know, of hidden families and whatnot. This is where we end this particular conversation. My name is Vivian Degwa, and I was with Mike Migwe as my co-host of the day. And our guest of the day was none other than Jane N. Kimari, who's a life coach, psychologist, and mental health expert. Remember, this conversation doesn't have to end here. You can get to communicate with us on our different social media handles on X, Facebook, and Twitter is still X. So on X and Facebook, that is at KBC Channel 1. Goodbye. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.